Good morning, everybody. This is Nicole Sharp of No Domestic Violence Zone Zero Inc. I am coming to you, and this is going to be a good recap of the month of October. Now, this is the month that was set aside to highlight awareness of domestic violence. But some of y'all know that I do this all year round. So today is not any other exception to that rule. And no, I did not bombard every single day with things pertaining to domestic violence. That takes a lot of dedication and support, and to constantly have updated material and information to share with the public. So if you have not noticed my pattern with this, what I usually do during this month of October is I share my story every year since this foundation was started. And I also do a recap or a reintroduction to how to get out. So I first and foremost want to thank God for another day of life, and I thank God for the opportunity to share my experience and the knowledge that I have gained from that experience, and along the way how things have changed, and making strides to continue bringing awareness to domestic violence. My name is Nicole Sharp, and I am a survivor of domestic violence. And I want to put out this disclaimer: domestic violence does not define who you are as a person. It's the things that you do after you survive something like domestic violence or any other type of trauma that defines you as a person. With that being said, I thank God for preserving my life for such a time as this, to be able to start a foundation and be able to be on this platform. I'm not the only one over here on this platform. It's not a whole ton of people over here, but I thank God for where He put me at, because I still can be a mouthpiece and still do His will. This is part of ministry, y'all. I'm going to get real deep today, this morning, because domestic violence is so commercialized and globalized and glossed over that people think it's just, even at this point in 2020, people still have not understood that domestic violence is not set at an economic class, the color of your skin, your educational status, your familiar status, your job status, the money that you got in your pocket or in your bank, or who you are in the world: a doctor, lawyer, medical examiner, sociologist, a clinologist, or anything like that. It does not matter if you have those things attached to your name. So I'm going to start out with letting you know that you may have not personally experienced domestic violence. But here's the thing. You may know someone, mother, grandmother, auntie, cousin, best friend, niece, church member, co-worker, neighbor from across the street, or seen someone that you don't even know experiencing domestic violence of some sort. Let me bust this myth out and let you know that domestic violence does not start because you got busted in your lip, or you got smacked in your mouth and knocked your tooth loose, or you got punched in the face, or you got dragged, or you got kicked, or you got stomped, or you got beat within an inch of your life, or you got choked until you passed out. It didn't start right there. It starts in the mental psyche. That person that is abusive, that person that is showing domestic violence is a person that comes to you. Now, mind you, when they come to you, and this is male or female, this is not a preference. Again, it's not just a man that's beating on a woman and killing her. Sometimes it is the other way around. And you have men getting beat by women. And they are killing them. And they are doing the exact same things to them that men do to women. So there is no separate way. There's no wrong way. There's no right way that domestic violence happens to both sexes. Generally, from my experience and from the research that I have done all of these years, women that are aggressive, overly aggressive, I should say, have the tendency sometimes to be the person that is the abuser. And they will beat up that boyfriend. They will beat up that husband. They will beat up that uncle, that cousin, that granddad, or whoever it may be. They are the ones that are in the driver's seat with the abuse. And they will be the one that is committing domestic violence. I'm talking a little bit slow here because I'm trying to make this not be so thick with just words. I want people to really understand and truly to really get that domestic violence is a worldwide problem. It affects every economic class, every nationality, every person in some way, shape, or form. Why do I say that? Because we have the adults that are in domestic violence, But before they ever became adults with domestic violence, they were teenagers dating a boy or dating a girl that had the signs of being a abuser. But because they didn't know what they were looking at, they just adjusted themselves to that behavior. No, we don't have to adjust to domestic violence. Domestic violence is not supposed to be a normal part of your life. It's not supposed to be part of your day. It's not supposed to be impacting your life to the point that you wake up and you live and breathe and you suffer at the hands of someone else, for lack of a better word, because they have insecure feelings, inadequate feelings about themselves, so they want to control someone else. That will make them feel like they are better and stronger and smarter and emotionally sound than they actually are. So let's get into it. I'm going to give you a little bit of a backdrop on how back when I experienced domestic violence. Let me say this. Domestic violence, I'm currently studying this and researching this, so I will come back with more information, and I will have some numbers, or at least have some information to share about the correlation between being molested as a child and domestic violence. Well, why would you say that? Let me tell you something. The only way that I could tell you is to tell you about me. Why I said what I just said. From the time that I was a small girl, 4 years old, I was molested. Ages 4 through 12, I had 3 different rounds of childhood molestation. And by the time that I was 12 years old, I had experienced things that grown women have not experienced. Excuse me. And my mindset was not that of a regular 12-year-old, because I had to carry that. I didn't know who to go to, and I didn't know how to get that off me. I did not know how to seek help. It almost killed me, literally, because I carried it for years and years, decades, before I ever spoke about what happened to me as a child that had impacted my life in the way that it has. So, ages 4 through 12, I went through that. I got to 12 years old, and that last person that had, I have been saying molested, but I looked up the statute and what the description of doing that to a child of a certain age. And because I was at that 12-year mark, I was not just molested, I was sexually assaulted. Listen to me. Girls and boys that have been molested when they were children like that, whether it was consistent or it was like what I did, it was a couple years in between my life before I hit age 12, that it was almost like it was normal, but I was battling with other things because of what had already happened to me. Keep up with where I'm going with this. So by the time 12 came, the last person, I had had enough, and somewhere inside of me, something just decided that I was not going to let nobody else put their hands on my body in a way that made me feel uncomfortable and do things to me that was not supposed to have been done to a child. Those people that did that to me, they were sick. But it took me many years to figure out that it was not my fault, that it was them. And so all of the things that I carried, the low self-esteem, the panic and the anxiety, the depression, the never feeling worth anything, the I don't matter, or not being able to sleep, or having issues with my nerves, and just in a place of being a shell, being in a shell. God revealed to me, gave me a revelation a few years ago about that. All of those things that I carried, that I felt that growing up, thinking that something was wrong with me, that that nobody cared about me, and that I didn't matter, and that I was not worth anything. You know where it comes from? It came from the abusers, because they were feeling like that. And everything that they felt, it was transferred to me when they started molesting me. Now, I'm not going to go in intimate detail and tell you what was done to me, but it was enough for their spirits to transfer and for me to have carried that for decades before somebody spoke into my life and broke those things off of me. Now I'm going back on track. I digress. So this particular time, it was that last incident that caused me to stand up for the first time in a way that I had never been able to stand up. This person followed me upstairs, and I'm going to say it like this: in a house that we were visiting, my mom and my siblings were at this person's house. Listen, he followed me upstairs, and I ran in the first bedroom. Now, I did not turn the light on in that room because I was familiar with that room. So the person that actually slept in that room, and it was their bedroom, I ran in there. But I also know that they played sports. They had bats and baseball mitts and everything in that room. I ran in that room, and I got a bat from behind the door. He did never see me pick up the bat because it was dark in the room, and he never intended on turning on the light. He intended to continue his reign of terror that he had been doing to me. This particular night, he was chasing me around in that room, and y'all, I'm going to tell y'all, I had it. I started swinging that bat, and the next thing you know, the person that owned that house, she came upstairs, and she did what we must continue to do. She turned the light on. When she turned the light on, it was in essence uncovering, letting it be seen, exposing what was about to happen had she not came up the stairs when she came up the stairs. And she said, "Well, what's going on here?" And I said, has been after me. He is trying to get at me. And there was nothing that he could say. So he ran out of the room and ran back downstairs and left that house that night. Now, what I said in my 12-year-old mindset was he was after me. But you know that was never talked about again. That was never explored. It was never opened up to the point where I was able to probably tell about the other two incidences of child molestation that took place previous. But because it never was approached in that way, there was not an opportunity to speak. So you see, I fought back in a way that I stopped him from doing what he was always doing that night by swinging the bat and making noise and everything in that room. But I still was on mute. I was on mute because I didn't know how to put into words what he had did. Because I believe if I knew how to say it in a way that she understood, then the police would have been involved. And the other abusers would have got told on to. And that would have exposed them. It did not go that way. So after that happened, I went on to, my teenage years. Yeah, I liked it boys, but I really didn't know how to talk to boys, and I was bashful and all of those other things. And I struggled with how I looked, how my body shape was. I struggled with those things because I did not have a good sense of self, and I did not have that foundation of you strong and you smart and you can be whatever it is that you set out to be in your life. Didn't have that. Not placing blame, but I didn't come from that. So I started liking boys and dating guys, young boys my age. I might have became a little bit promiscuous because I didn't know how to express myself sexually in a normal way because I had been violated. So what I was doing was, I was experimenting with boys, not knowing nothing about what I was doing and not even realizing that it was me acting out. Did I sleep with a lot of boys? No. But did I have encounters with boys? Yes. Yes, I did. Some of them were my age, some of them were a little bit older than I was. When I hit that 14, 15 mark, my first experience with having a boyfriend was I was 15 and he was 20. But he lied and told my mom he was 18, but she knew better. And that was also my first experience after going through childhood molestation with a person that I was dating. And it got physical. And we fought. And so it was natural for me from the age of 12 on to be fighting with males that was putting their hands on me or being rough with me or threatening to be rough or what have you. So I already was in fight mode. So you see, I have been fighting my whole entire life. And people make fun and say that famous line from the Color Purple with Oprah played Sophia, and she said, all my life I had to fight. I had to fight my uncles. I had to fight my daddy. I had to fight this person and that person. She was not telling no lie. I felt like I had did the same thing. And so when I was hit my mid-teens, reconnecting with a young man that we were put together as children, and they thought it was cute. So we off and on, we grew up always being around each other, liking each other, and things like that. But let me tell you, when we got to the teenage years, something had happened to him. And I didn't experience it at that time, but I did. And it got to the point where I did no longer want to be in a relationship with this person because they wanted to tell me how I should walk, what perfume to wear, not to wear my hair down because I had long, pretty hair, not to wear my hair down, not to wear certain things. Now, at that time, I did have an inkling that I didn't want nobody telling me stuff like that because my mom didn't really do that. She didn't tell me stuff like that. She taught me how to dress modest because I grew up in a strict apostolic Pentecostal background. So it was not a whole lot of wiggle room to be doing wild stuff anyways. But your girl was trying. And um, when I tried to break it off, again, my experience with this person, which was the same age as me, my experience with him when I said I no longer wanted to date and that we needed to go our separate way, that's what got me slammed up against the side of our church. And our church was a brick building. So that is what has formed in my life was violence of some sort. It was always some type of violence, being shoved or, or pushed or, you know, those type of things. So I'm trying to paint the picture of there is a cycle that starts that we don't realize it's a cycle until we get much older and we start getting a sense about ourselves. And at that time, I didn't have sense about myself, but I knew that I didn't want nobody telling me what to do because I didn't like that. Because I felt like I could speak for myself and I was my own person, and I didn't want nobody telling me what I could wear and what I can't wear, how I can wear my hair and how I can't, and how I need to walk and how I need, and all of those things. I didn't want all of that. That was too much. That's too much control. And I ain't never liked being controlled. I don't like that. So going forward, that was the 15-year mark. When I hit that's between that 17, late 16, early 17 age mark, like I said, I grew up in strict. We were groomed and were taught and put in our heads about being married and bearing children, and that was your lot in life because that's what the church had us in that mindset. I'm using my words carefully because it's not that I'm throwing blame at anyone, but I'm trying to let you understand something. So I rebelled, of course, because that's not what I was thinking about. I was thinking about how can I get the heck out and come back to the place of my birth, because I did not grow up per se where I actually was birthed and where my family actually was. I grew up in a whole nother city and state. And I never liked where I was because I felt like all of those bad things that happened to me happened when I came there. And in essence, it was the utter truth. It was. So I spent most of my life trying to get back where I was born at. Even down to when my great granny would come visit, and when it was time for her to go back, I would be trying to hide in her suitcase because I was trying to go back home. I wanted to go with her. My mom wasn't going for it. I kept trying. I was trying all kind of schemes and tricks, and nothing was working, y'all. And when she would be gone after she had left, I would be like I would go through the mourning process because I would just feel like so disconnected to where I was actually living at and where I wanted to be at. It was two different mindsets. Yes, I was a child, so I really didn't have a lot to say so about that part, but I still was trying. And I wanted to be with my granny because I love my granny to pieces. So, at the age of 18, now because I grew up in church, I had a lot of things that I was doing. I was active in church. Just putting that out there. I was active in church and I wore many hats. I was young with it, but I was groomed. That's how I was groomed, to be active in church. So I was working that this particular year of my life. I was 18 then, and bumped literally into the person that was going to be my abuser and my terrorizer without realizing it. And so in June of that year that I turned 18, school was out for the summer. By the time school was going back in, taken back in September, I was already set apart and picked to do this get married thing. September of my senior year that had just started. A month after school started, I was married. The man that I married was 32 years old. Y'all know I just told y'all I didn't like nobody telling me what to do. And so I was bucking against, well, y'all get married. When will we get married? And the scripture that was put to us and beat across the head with was, it's better to marry than it is to burn. My flesh wasn't burning, y'all. I was not sexing. I didn't even have no regular boyfriend. I wasn't even doing that. That was not even in my mindset. Yes, I thought boys was cute. That's not what I'm talking about. I wasn't out there sexing, and so my hormones was not running rampant and all crazy and controlling me and making me feel crazy and do crazy stuff. No, I wasn't like that. So I find myself being a missus because before I ever learned about who Nicole was. That following June, first child came. But let me give you a little background. My introduction into domestic violence full throttle was this marriage. Listen to me. Here we go. I did not recognize the symptoms or the signs of domestic violence. It took me a few years to realize that. But it started out like this. Like I told you when I first started this live audio, is that it's a mindset thing. So Y'all can unstick the pen now. I'm finna tell you why I said that. Because it started out with the same thing when I was a teenager, younger, a few years before I got married. The same scenario was, you cannot wear this, you cannot look this certain way, you cannot make eye contact with other people, and a whole bunch of other you cannot and you ain't gonna do, and this is how it's gonna be type of thing. And me, and I'm saying this in a way because at that time I did not know any better, and nobody was telling me any better. I was as green as the grass, green as money, emerald green, whatever green you could think of in your mind. When I say green, I was green. Because what was said to me was things like manipulation. Well, I don't want you wearing that no more, and I don't want you wearing your hair a certain way. And at the age of 18, because he was 14 years older than I was, he would start dressing me like I was his age to deter young men my age from wanting to be with me and looking at me. So it was a method to that madness. And it was a mind thing first. That's how it started. It was a mind thing. And it was a controlling thing. I did not catch any of those red flags. And my green self thought that, oh, he telling me not to dress like this and not to wear this and not to say that or look a certain way because he loved me and he cared about me. I thought that's what love meant. That's not love. That's manipulation. That's control. Side note, control and manipulation, that is a sign of witchcraft. Follow me. So that was my introduction, full throttle into domestic violence, And I still did not know at the time what I had stepped in. I thought my life at home was horrible and I wanted out, but marriage was not the plan that I had to get out. It was either to run away and get missing or go to college. That was my options that I had gave myself. And I even, being a child that I was at that time when I made that pact, I had a friend girl. She had a rough home life too. That thing wasn't happening to her, but she had a rough home life. She had the mommy dearest complex going on in her house. So we had made this pact that when we get of age, the first thing smoking, we was trying to be on it. We was gonna run away and go to college, or those were our options. It was never, oh, we gonna get married. We wasn't even talking about that because we wasn't thinking about that, because that was not in my mindset in the near future at all. That was at least another 15 years out for me because I wasn't thinking about that. Fast forward. So I went through my senior year. Here I am, married, and very soon after married, pregnant, first time. That's when it intensified because this person no longer went to church. This person flipped the whole script and went back to what he probably was already doing. And in hindsight, the way that he carried himself, saying that he had a clean period, which was he was in that probationary period. That was, to me, that's code word for on the hunt, because you are dried out from alcohol and drugs and the lifestyle that you live. You appear to be normal, and you appear to be a good catch, and you appear to be a person that is decent. That was not the case. It was the utter opposite. And went down the spiral watching this person that was chosen for me to marry. Now, it's conflicting statements, even all of these years later, and people will say, well, she wanted to get married. No, I didn't. When they started talking about that, I was the first one saying, that's not what I want to do. I want to go to college. And I had proceeded to apply to colleges not in that city and state because I was trying to get away. I wanted out. I did not want to be tied to anyone there. I was trying to leave. So why would I want to get married? But nobody listened to that. And people will say that I'm saying that in hindsight. No, I was saying that back then. I was saying that nobody was listening. Again, your voice is powerful, but you can't make people listen to you when there's no respect for you, because had my wishes been respected, it would have never have been that first marriage that was ill-fated from the time that it was set up, and that whoever came up with it in their mind put it together. Sold me to the highest bidder. And that person was more evil than the stuff that I had already encountered in my life. And I wanted to get away from all of it, from all of the people associated with my life, my early life. I wanted to get away from all of them. When I say everybody, I meant everybody. Everybody. I wanted to get away. So I digress. But here we go. The alcohol and the drug use and the verbal abuse kicked up a notch. And it was really bad. I didn't know what I was looking at. I was scared. I didn't have no idea. I didn't even know how to say what was happening because I didn't even know how to put a name to what was happening. And it's those times when you don't have the education or have the knowledge or the foresight to realize that something is wrong and something is going on, and you don't know how to speak out against what you know is wrong, but you don't even know how to say it because you don't understand it. That was me. Alcohol and drugs took a big part in that marriage. And by the time it was time for me to deliver my first child, he was clean and sober like he was when I met him. He was going through the clean and sober phase. But this time, I recognized that that was a trick, because the first time I met him, he was clean and sober. He was in that dried out period. But he had been outside of church. He was not an active church member. He was not practicing living a godly lifestyle. So when I met him, I didn't know anything about this person, but it was presented like, oh, he a good catch. Yeah, he 14 years older than her, but it'll help her. It didn't help me. It almost killed me, literally. So I'm going to move quickly now through this because I don't want to be here all day telling y'all my whole life story. I'm giving y'all a background on how things turn into domestic violence in my life, and how the correlation between what I've already spoke to you is now mixed in with what is happening at that point in my life when I was 18, 19 years old. So clean and sober when I had my first child. The loving dad, the doting husband, and all of those things. False. that was a front to keep everybody at bay and to keep everybody thinking that everything was A-OK. When actuality, it was not. It went downhill even more after my first child was born. I go for my second week checkup, and I am told that I am pregnant a second time. Mind you, I know what it takes to get pregnant. You got to have sex and all of that. Yeah, I get that. I don't remember doing any of that. But I am pregnant again, child number 2. And the same cycle that started with the first baby again has intensified with the second one. Went through the same similar thing, and it was really bad. To the point where I was on bed rest. So basically I was at home and could not move around out and about because I had a high risk pregnancy. But back then nobody acknowledged domestic violence. Nobody even thought that that was going on. But I was fighting physically with him, with the first one and with the second one, putting myself in great harm, in great danger. Did not realize the danger that I was in because I was fighting with my abuser. And at this time, y'all, I'm trying to tell you, I still did not know that that was domestic violence that I was in. And I still did not know all of the signs. I just knew that this was crazy stuff that was happening in my life. Second child comes, he get clean and sober again. So he's going on his third round of the clean and sober, and everybody is fooled because he clean and sober. But don't nobody know the whole 9 months that I'm pregnant with these first 2 children, that I'm going through hell and I'm catching hell because he's doing drugs and alcohol and introducing unsavory characters into our life. The life that we had, it really wasn't a life, it was a prison. It was a mobile prison, emotionally and any other way you want to put it, because I was even more controlled. I had been isolated from everyone. I gave birth to the second child, and he continued doing what he was doing. It intensified with it started with, a shove. It started with the threatening of physical violence, and then it started with he put his hands on me. I put my hands on him back. We fighting because I'm up here like, you not gonna just hit me and I'm not finna hit you back. I don't know where we finna do this at, but no. And like I said, I was ignorant. Did not know that I was in harm's way and that I was in domestic violence and that I could have been killed instantly. On the part of being ignorant, because I had no idea. Let me say this to you, young ladies. When that young man, or that young man that's a boy on the inside, but look like a man, but he a boy mentality, he put his hands on you the first time, it's not going to ever stop until you stop it. I didn't learn that at that time. I know it now, so I'm telling and I'm sharing. Listen, for 2 years it was just those 2 boys. I had 2 sons. And then it intensified again and then heightened to another level with domestic violence. We are now at the point where you bringing people to the apartment and they are like you. They are using drugs and they are using alcohol and God knows whatever else that they was doing. But they was coming up in our house because you were bringing them there. Long story short, fast forward through here, got pregnant the third time. Didn't know I was pregnant because I, you know, was on my cycle. Didn't know. And fight broke out. Me fighting him again. We fought. Everything was physical with us. It was always a physical. It was never a talking and a yelling. It was that too, but it was always the physical that came really fast. And so got pregnant, didn't know I was pregnant, fighting with him, end up losing the baby. And I end up hemorrhaging. I end up hemorrhaging in the house for a few days, 2 days, 48 hours, somewhere along that timeline. Mind you, I had these two little boys, and one was in Pampers and one was not quite out of Pampers. So I had that going on. I'm hemorrhaging. He done took the phones out the house. Didn't have no cell phone at that time. It was in the early 90s. No cell phone. I didn't have access to that. House phone, he was taking that. I couldn't call for help. But God sent someone to come check on me. And my oldest child, I gave him the keys and I said, throw him out the window. And he threw him out the window. And he clapped his hands because he had did what I told him to do. Throw the keys out the window. The person got the keys that came in my house. They got upstairs because we lived in an upstairs apartment. And they were screaming and hollering because I was in there. And it was blood everywhere. And you could see where I had been crawling, dragging myself through the house, trying to find a phone that he did not take. There was no phone in the house. I cannot tell you what those children ate during that 48-hour period, but I will tell you that they are still alive and well. But I can tell you nothing about that time because it was a blur to me because I was going through that with my physical body. Losing blood like that. Carrying a child, didn't know I was carrying a child. And when that person came, I remember saying, I need to go to the bathroom. Well, I'm going to go with you. Went to the bathroom. I wasn't even ashamed at that time because I was just so thankful that God sent somebody to check on me. And I sat down on the toilet and I was like, immediately my stomach was hurting. I didn't know what was happening. And they held my hand and I hollered a couple of times and my baby came out. The baby was put in a mason jar because I saw what size it was. I was about 6 weeks early on in my pregnancy. Maybe I may have been 2 or 3 months, but no more than 3 months pregnant. Anyhow, my mother was called. Got to the hospital. There was no reason for them to do a DNC because everything had already came out. So my mind is now, I am emotional because I realized that I was pregnant and didn't know that I was pregnant. And I have lost a child. And I did not know how to process any of that on top of what I was going through with my abuser, which happens to be the first man that I married. A week later, after that ordeal, you ain't gonna believe this, but I was pregnant the fourth time. So I was pregnant 2 times in 1995. Lost a baby pregnant a week later. Again, the whole time I'm pregnant with this child, I went through the same exact thing as I had with the other pregnancies. And this is where that courage and that bravery came in again. And I had doctor's appointments, of course, because I'm pregnant. I took it upon myself, and I know that it was God. So I thank God in hindsight because He put that in my spirit. But I went to this particular appointment and I talked to my doctor. I did not tell anyone that I was going through domestic violence because yet I still did not know that there was a name for what was happening. Had no idea still. And I set myself up to have my tubes tied because at that point, I said, if I lost a child and you will turn around and will do what you done for me to get pregnant a second time, another time, after that trauma had happened to my body, you didn't care about me. You never did. It was never about me. It was about a controlling thing. It was about being with someone that did not know how men are and did not know that men manipulate, lie, steal, kill, will beat you within an inch of your life, will do all those horrible things to you. And because I did not know any of those things, that was a playground for him. The doctor said, well, we don't perform that at this hospital. And out of my mouth, I said, send me to the other one. And I want my doctor that I have that work at this hospital to come to that hospital and do my surgery because I'm not having any more children from this person. I am not doing it. I am done. This is the last. And they set it up. I didn't say a word about what I had done. I didn't say anything about the papers that I signed. I didn't say anything like that. I went on with everything, went on through the rest of the pregnancy, in and out the hospital, being in hospital for dehydration and all those things. And all of that came from being stressed out because I was going through DV. And again, with the high risk pregnancy with this child. Now, I had stopped fighting with him because I now understood that I didn't want to lose another child that way because I had blamed myself. Had I not been fighting with him, I may have not lost that third child, but I didn't at that time didn't know any better. I didn't. So I can't blame myself for what I did not know, but what I know now, I am accountable for. And we are accountable for when we learn about domestic violence. We are accountable for how we handle ourselves if that should come to us in a situation that we should know enough to not even entertain it. I don't care how good they are in between the covers. That does not negate domestic violence is dangerous and you can lose your life. It's not that serious. Sex is not that serious. Sex is on the back burner. And so I get to term and I have this child again, fourth time, clean and sober. And I was a mess. Mentally, physically, I didn't even know what shape I was in. But I'm going to tell y'all and I'm going to move forward after this quickly. I had went through so much physical trauma that I had my tubes tied, thinking that that was going to at least save me from having to carry another child from the very person that was abusing me. Y'all, it did not. My body was already messed up and I didn't even know it. I had no idea. I had my tubes tied, had the surgery, had the operation. That was my first time having an operation. The following year, had my gallbladder removed. The following year, I had to have surgery where I cannot have children. Listen, I am sharing, being really transparent because I want you to understand the effects that DV can have on your life because you do not know. I'm not going to tell y'all no lie. I had hatred for him because he took my choice away from me. It was not that I wanted to be the Birdie Bunch and have a whole house full of kids like the woman that live in the shoe. It was not that. You took away my choice, so if I ever decided to do that again, I didn't even get the choice because you took it because of all of what had already happened to my body. Y'all, domestic violence is serious. It is right up there with getting a terminal disease because it is a disease. It's a sickness. It's an illness. So fast forward to when I became aware of what danger that I was in, when I had to experience the show that used to come on in the 90s was NYPD Blue, old cop show, one of my favorite shows actually. But my life was the real life NYPD Blue. The only thing that did not happen was my house never got raided. And that was the only thing that was different. But everything else that was going on in that show, the drug bust or the drug dealers, you know, putting together their stash in somebody's apartment and took over somebody's apartment and doing what they're doing. Yeah, that was happening in my house. So I seen guns on the very table that I fed my children at. That's where they were. And my choices were, you can stay down here with us or you can go upstairs. But you are not going to leave this house until after we leave this house. So I chose to go upstairs. And when I went upstairs, I had my children in a huddle and my body was shielding them. And I was praying. And I changed the way that I prayed right then. I said, God, I don't even know if I'm saying this right, God, but I need you to make a way of escape because I know that that was in the Bible. And I know that God protects his people. And I asked God to make a way of escape. I didn't understand what I prayed, but I that was my protection prayer. Make a way of escape, God, and protect us from getting killed up in here because we know that when you do anything to the drug dealer's product, no questions asked, everybody in the house is killed. No witnesses, no survivors. So I prayed that. And I went through that. Couple years I went through that. I lived like that. Still going to church. He no longer went. He had been stopped. But when we went to church as a family, everybody thought it was the best thing to see was a young couple with 2 children, 3 children, and you know that was a good thing to see. It was something to see. But what people did not know what they were looking at, it was a time bomb. So going through all of that part, fast forward, here we go, y'all. 1997. Everything had came to a head. I had enough of the foolishness. I had enough of the abuse. I've had enough of being choked until I pass out or black out. I've had enough of being threatened to be beat with an object. I've had enough of being threatened to get burnt with an iron, or enough of, the threat of being beat up because I didn't want to wake up to argue about things that were insignificant. I had had enough, and I didn't even know how to get out. I was scared, for one thing, because I had already been told that basically, you pick a day. I'm always ready. You're not leaving me unless you in a body bag. That's the only way you getting away from me. Because if I can't have you, nobody can. Ladies, 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 men, gentlemen, when they say that to you, please, please, please take it serious, because they mean that. And I started running with my children to the local shelters. And I am going to shout out that first shelter that put a name to what I was living through and living with. I'm not going to say the city and state, and I'm quite sure that name is very popular, so I'm just going to say the name. SafeNet was the organization that put a name to what I had been living with since 1992. And here it is, 5 years later. I had to run for my very life with 3 small children, my baby on my hip and 2 little boys. I go to this place and I get accepted in, and for the first time, and I couldn't tell you when I felt safe. Even though I was not in my own place, I really didn't care about that. I was able to get in the bed with all 3 of my babies and think about my next move, what I needed to do to continue to keep myself safe. And I thought I was doing something, y'all. I got the counseling. They started teaching me and telling me different things and giving me information about domestic violence. That's when I learned that there is a name. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what this is. Okay. And I was being educated. What had started happening shortly after that was he started calling all the shelters. And because there was a really strict rule, which they still have in most places like that, is that you cannot compromise the safety of other women and children that are in that place with you. And if there's any threat that it could be compromised, you have to leave. So long story short, I had to leave because he had started calling all of the shelters in that town, trying to find me and threatening me to do stuff to my mom if I did not come and talk and bring my children. In essence, basically leave the shelter, the safe place where I had found, and come back to that hell that I had been living with him. And when I came back, because I had no other option, because I did not trust anything that he said, I didn't know if he was going to do anything to my mother or not, but I was not waiting to find out. So I had to bite that bullet and then realize that I really didn't have to bite it, but I didn't know at the time. And I went back. Ladies, when you get out, you need to stay out. Do not go back. I'm going to talk about this later on, about the do not go back. Okay, so I went back, and it was worse than it was before I left the first time, because he felt like I had been empowered. And I had been. I had all of those things in my head, what I had learned and been told. And in order for him to feel like he had to have control back, the threat of having his gun that was going to be in the house with me and these children was going to be the way of life because he needed to have control. I was fearful because I didn't want the gun in the house because I had children in the house. And we all know now from all of the stories that we have heard and seen on the news that children in the house with guns in a domestic violence situation usually end up with the child playing with the gun, getting a hold to the gun, killing one of either their siblings or they self, and it's just not a safe environment to be in all the way around. So I went through that, and I got up the nerve and I ran again. And I was just like, can't live like this. These kids did not ask to come here. I couldn't leave for my own self. I left because my children deserved better. They did not ask to come here, and I was not going to have them growing up like that. So I fought like hell to get out of the hell that I was living. Ladies, if you do not have the strength to leave for yourself and you have children in this situation, look at those children. Do they deserve to live and grow up like that? No, they do not. They didn't ask to come here, but they are here. We have to protect them. And that's what I did. So I ran again. But the last time that I ran, this is when I'm fast forwarding really fast, y'all. This is when I understood what was happening, understood what this was and everything, and I was not with it. And so in the middle of all of that craziness, our church was going to a gospel concert, and the church was going. Anybody who wanted to go to the concert was preparing to go. I wanted to go. He said, I'm not keeping the children so you can go meet someone else and try to leave me. He was on something else, as you can tell, and I was not thinking about him anymore. I didn't care about him like that. I wish he would have walked off a cliff slowly. That's what I really was hoping. I got tired of he disappeared for 4 and 5 days at a time, and he would be binging, and he would be out there in the streets and doing God knows what. And I'm getting phone calls, people saying they seen him with this person or that person, and he's this place and that place. And nobody was praying for me, but they were sure talking about me. They sure were pointing their fingers and talking, but nobody was praying and lifting me up in prayer, me or my kids. So I just wanted to put that out there. You will have people that will be around you and know what is happening or understand or see something going on, and they will not pray for you. They will not comfort you. They will not give you advice. They will talk about you, and they will dog you out because they don't have any idea the seriousness and what is actually happening. Church people now, I throw that out there. So anyhow, I went to this gospel concert. His cousin ended up keeping my children, and I went to the concert, and it was Fred Hammond, and his hit out at that time was No Weapon. Dottie Peoples was on that same concert. Her hit out at that time was He Was an On-Time God. And I remember the other people that were there, but I couldn't tell you what they were singing. Because remember I told you I prayed to God to make a way of an escape. Well, my breakthrough came at that concert. But I did see Hezekiah Walker, BB, and CeCe Winans. They were there too. But Fred Hammond started singing No Weapon, and it was something inside of me that broke. And I had tears that came out of me that I had never cried before. I was tired and I was scared and I didn't know if I was going to end up dead. But I was praying that God made a way for me to get out. He sung No Weapon. Dottie Peoples came behind him and sung On Time God. So not only did I get my breakthrough, that telling me that it don't matter what he has going on or what he has planned. When I asked God to make a way of escape, God was doing just that. And On Time God was a confirmation that God always come on time. He may not come when you think he's supposed to come, but he always is on time. So I went back to the state that I lived in at that time with a renewed mindset and a breakthrough that had taken place inside of me and inside of my mind. My freedom had came. I came back and I stayed at a person from church. I stayed at their house with them, stayed the night, got up, let them know I would see them later. I didn't tell anybody what I was doing, but I had to put my money where my mouth is. I had to put on my big girl drawers, and I left her house and I prayed and I walked. And I walked to where we were living at. And when I got closer, of course, I had a different mindset. It was very stressful for me. And so I got down there and I started looking around at the trees in the sky and things outside. And I said, God, I was sweating profusely, and I'm not a sweater, but I was sweating because it was fear of what I was about to do. And I said, God, you know that if he is in here, you know that I'm not coming out of this apartment the same way I went in here. And I knew that there was a 98% chance that I was going to be killed if I went in this apartment and he was in this apartment. So I looked at the trees and things around me and my surroundings, and I started to memorize them because I did not know at that point, y'all, if I was going to live or survive. I put the key in the lock and I went in the house and I stood there. I closed the door quiet and locked the door, and I stood at the bottom of the steps, and the steps had creaks in them. I knew where all the creeks was in the steps, so I walked around all the creeks and got up the steps. I scaled the wall like I was doing police work, y'all. Looked in the children's room. Of course, I knew they weren't in there. I looked at their stuff in their room and all of that. And it was a hallway before you actually get inside of the main bedroom, which was our room. I, up against the wall, I went in there as quiet as I could, and I peeked around the thing, around the wall. He wasn't in there. And I said, okay. I looked in the other room where my baby crib was in the other room. And I now knew at that moment that I was in the house by myself. And I was like, okay. I went back downstairs. I walked in the kitchen. And I stood in the middle of the kitchen. And I looked up and I said, God, you got to tell me what to do. Because if you do not tell me what to do, I'm not going to make it out this apartment alive. God started speaking. For those that do not believe that God speaks and have never heard his voice, or you don't think that he hears you when you pray, I am here to tell you, yes, he does. Yes, he did. And yes, he will. Underneath the sink, he said, get the garbage bags. I got the garbage bags, and he gave me detailed instructions. My instructions was everything downstairs, I can take whatever I can carry. Get the whatever was in the front closet, you got access to that. Do not go back upstairs and get anything. You got the front closet down these steps to get what you need to get. And I did exactly what he said. Still had fear, but I was moving it. And after I was on my second garbage bag, I heard a knock. And I was like, and I froze. And fear kicked in, and I said, oh, God, he done forgot his key. And he expected me to be here, so I don't have to let him in. And if I let him in and he figuring out what I'm trying to do, I'm going to be killed. This is the day that I'm going to die because I'm trying to leave. I went to the door and I said, who is it? It's me. Who is me? Your sister. What? So I looked through the little peephole, and it was her. I cracked the door, and I was like, what's up? She's like, what you doing? She looking, what you doing? I was like, I'm packing. I'm leaving. She pushes the door wide open, and she comes in. So I closed the door back, and I locked the door again. And she said, it's about time. She got bags, and she started getting everything. Now, mind you, God said I can get everything that was downstairs that I can carry. We took everything out of the cabinets, out of the refrigerator, everything downstairs that I can get at that time that I thought to grab. I did that. We had probably about 6, maybe 8 garbage bags. I want to say 6 garbage bags that you use to put leaves in. So they were the bigger ones. They was not the regular size ones for trash. We had the bigger ones. Called a cab. Cab came, put them in the cab. Cab dipped a little bit in the back because of them bags. Man, where you going? Sir, can you just pull away from this apartment and I'll tell you where we going. He got up to the entrance and exit to leave out of where I was staying at. And when he got riding down the road and he got to that stop sign to hit the main street, that's when I told him where I was going, and that's when I exhaled. And I was sitting in the front seat with all of these emotions. I got out. I did not get killed. He did not come back and kill me because I got out. I left. And I was telling God, thank you, because he saved my life. I'm trying to tell you, that was a journey that I would not wish on anyone. But I shared that in great detail with y'all because I want y'all to understand that it's a cycle. And when you do not know something, it can kill you. You are in danger when you are not aware of how serious domestic violence is. I have shared parts of my story, of my life, that I have never spoke on no radio wave or no broadcast because we all bury the ugly. And I'm fast forwarding back to my present time. The thing that was ugly, those things that happened to me in my childhood and in my teens and in my 20s, those things happened to me. I tried to bury them. I couldn't forget about them, but I wasn't trying to let people know about them. All the way until 2018. I have been speaking out, talking to, one person here, one person there. Sometimes it was a couple of them, 3 or 4 at a time. I was telling my story because I had survived. And did not know that that was using my voice and speaking out at that time. Did not know that that was the beginning of No Domestic Violence Zone 0, Inc. Now, I'm going to go back and I'm going to unpin something. Now, I had got out and everything and I went to my mom's house and started on my recovery journey. But before I can fully recover, after I had left, he came to the church where we used to go as a family, where everybody thought we were just the best thing since the toast came out. I want you to stop the divorce. I don't want a divorce. Um, you crazy. I'm not finna start no divorce. We're not doing that. We don't live like that. That's what you choose to do with your life. These kids not finna grow up like that. If you ain't trying to be responsible, I'm finna be responsible because I had them. And he attacked me in the parking lot at the church. And he tried to put me through somebody's windshield of their car with my back. So my back has been messed up for a long time because I've had physical things like that happen to me. Slammed up against the side of the building, the same church, in the parking lot of the same church, trying to go through somebody's windshield. It took 6, maybe 8 brothers to get him off of me. And I knew that I was doing the right thing by not stopping the divorce or anything like that. I proceeded. And y'all, I'm going to tell y'all something. I lived by myself for, it was probably about 4 years. 4 years, 4.5 years. I had moved on with my life and I was rebuilding pieces and I was raising these children and I was doing it by myself. I didn't care about that. I was thankful for having life. So I was working and going to school, doing my little grind, and that was in 2002 when my life almost was taken from me, literally. My vehicle was in the shop, and I was catching a bus with my children because it was in repair, and it was getting dark that evening, and a friend of mine had seen me at the bus stop with my children, and they gave us a ride home. Got home, they stayed around and talked for a few minutes and stuff like that. Next thing you know, hear a knock on the door like that, and I was like, "Who is it?" And I'm looking through the people, and I was like, "Oh nah, I'm not even finna open this door. We not doing that." So I was like, "I'm not opening the door. What is it that you want?" "I want to see my kids." You was not thinking about these kids. You trying to get up in here because you think you finna control some stuff. And prior to that, he did come in that same apartment that I was in and tried to take over again like he did before. Except I had put my foot down and I said, "I don't know where you and your brother going. Y'all can't stay up in here. We don't live like that. Y'all gotta go." And the brother left. He lingering around. It's some pieces that I'm leaving out because I'm not trying to be super graphic. But he did something to me in that house that I will never forget for the rest of my life. And it was a feeling that I just it felt like I had an outer body experience. That's all I can say about that at this time. You have to read the book when it comes out. But he had, unbeknownst to me, he had undid my window screens from the inside of the house. It was in the dead of winter where I was at that time. And so when he got out, after I put him out, told him he got to go, he can't stay up in there, I don't know where you going, you leaving here though. About 10 days after, 11 days after he did that, I still didn't know that, came back to the house that same night I'm talking to you about when he knocked on the door and wanted to see the children. He was not thinking about those children, y'all. Do not let those guys or those women tell you that they love their kids and they want to come see them and they miss them and all that. That is not, they're not there for those children. They are there to cause harm or worse. They are there to kill you. Point, period, blank. I wouldn't let him in, y'all. We arguing through the front door. I was like, I'm not having it. I'm like, mm-mm. So the company, the person that had brought me home, we are not in no relationship, friends, platonic friends. He went in my basement and he said, well, I'm just going to chill down here until you get rid of him, and then I'll go on my way, because he had something else he was doing that evening. He was going on a date, and it didn't go that way. And when I stopped arguing with him at the front door because I wouldn't let him in, he walked around to the back of my house, y'all, and I didn't even hear him. He came in through the back windows to my bedroom. That's how he got in the house. And he had stepped from back there into the hallway like he had been in the house all day. And when I tell y'all that the hairs on the back of my neck have stood up, and my mind said, he came in here to kill me today. I'm going to let that marinate. When you know that the person that is your abuser or your attacker is set out to kill you, it do something to you. And I had I had probably about, before he got to my children's room, while we were arguing at the front door, I had already told my kids, y'all play clubhouse in here, and you stay in here until mommy come get you, because he was outside and I wasn't trying to let him in. But I told them that. And I also told them this: if you hear mommy holler, I need y'all to climb out this window and go to your grandma's house and tell her, grandma, mommy in trouble. Call the police. Now I told them that. At this age, those babies were 8, 7, and 5 when this happened. Going back to what happened, he came in the house, walking down the hallway, and he's yelling, "You better not have no man in your bed." I'm up here like, you just came out of my room. You know it ain't nobody in my bed. Your feet was in my bed because you walked across my bed coming in my house that I did not invite you in, that I put you out of. So he looking in the bathrooms, looking in closets and all of that, and he walks to the kids. Where my kids at? They in their room. He go in there. Y'all come out. It's me. It's your dad. He comes. That they come out, and you know when something is awkward to somebody and they're not familiar or they're not used to doing that because they got the wrong motive or they're not even focused on what they're doing. So he's rubbing my boys the top of their head and all of that, and he touched my daughter's cheek and stuff like that. And after he comes out of the room where they was at playing. They stayed in there because they didn't know what was happening, but I felt something was not finna be good happening. So he came back in there and he looking all through the house and he ain't see nobody. He goes down the basement. Of course he gonna run into my friend that's in the basement because that's where my friend was at, because we were trying to diffuse the situation before it escalated. But it escalated. He came back and he went downstairs. What you doing in the house with my wife? She's still my wife. We still married. I don't want your wife like that. I got my own girlfriend and I gave her a ride home. He didn't hear anything that he said. It was the fact that he was in there that set him off. He came back upstairs and he hit me so hard, I went over the side of the couch. And that's when he proceeded to whooped my behind from one end of the living room to the other end. My head missing corners of the end tables I had in there, missing corners of the wall where I could have got my eye split open or my head split open. He's doing all of that. And when he got done doing that, he goes in the kitchen. He's trying to find a knife because he's trying to stab me up. And thank God that I had made dishwater and I had not washed dishes yet. So the knives that he was looking for to stab me with were in the dishwater, but you couldn't see past the bubbles. And he didn't think to put his hand in any water because I probably would have been stabbed and I probably would not be here and I probably would have been dead or at least severely injured. So he comes back out of the kitchen, but he come out with an iron skillet. He got that skillet, I got that phone, and my friend by this time came out the basement, and my kids was standing right there, all three of them, screaming at the top of their lungs. They froze with fear. They didn't even do what I told them to do because I was trying to get them out of the house. That was my thing. So I ran outside with the phone and my friend following behind me because I was trying to deflect and take whatever was finna happen to me. I was trying to take it away from my kids because I was praying that they would do what I told them to do because I needed them to get out of the house. I said to myself, this sound crazy, but it's not crazy. I said, I can die if I know my children are not going to see how he killed me up in this house. I wanted them out of their apartment because I knew that I was going to die that day. I felt that I was. And I ran outside. He ran outside behind me. My friend came outside too. He said, oh, you trying to call the police on me? You ain't nobody finna come help you. I told you if I can't have you, nobody can. That's what he yelling at me. He took the phone from me, snatched it from out of my hand, throwed it down in the snow, and he stomped on it. He didn't do anything to the phone, but the back of the phone that covers up the battery came off. But he didn't realize that. He just threw the phone down, thought he did something. Okay. What happened next was this. I ran away from my house to the next yard, and it was quiet that night. It was like that eerie quiet. So people were home, and I was in the neighbor's yard, and I was screaming help. And because this woman did not like me, she looked out her window and she did not help me. She did not call the police. She was watching me get beat outside and dragged. Now, my friend started walking up on him like he was going to tackle him like football tackle and trying to, again, diffuse the situation and stop it. And he raised the skillet high. He said, if you come any closer, I'm going to bust her head open with this skillet. He stopped. He backed up. And he was dragging me. And I was struggling trying to catch my bearings because I'm outside with a whole pajama onesie on for adults, y'all, with socks on. No shoes. 19 degrees outside. And I ain't got nothing on but a short pajama onesie. That's what I had on that day. Me and my kids, we were all in our PJs because we were at home for the evening. It was church the next morning. So, having said that, I'm struggling trying to get my balance so I can get up, so I can try to fight back, but I never had a chance to fight back. He took advantage of the fact that I didn't have on no socks and I didn't have no way of having any traction with socks in snow. It was not happening. So, again, my friend came charging again the second time. And he raised the skillet again and he said the same thing. I told you, if you come any closer, I'm going to open her head up with this skillet. This is my wife. I could do what I want to do to her. She know I told her that if I can't be with her, she not going to be with nobody else. And he made him leave. So he got in his car. And he went, before he got in his car, he went to the neighbors' houses on both sides, knocking on doors, trying to get somebody to call 911. Nobody answered the door. Okay. He gets in the car and he leaves. He make him leave. He punk him out and make him leave. So now I'm by myself with him. And I said, okay, this is how this happening. All this fighting I did to get away from him, and this is what is happening to me. Okay. So he drugged me back across the neighbor's yard that was to my left. My tree in my front yard had the roots sitting on the top. I was dragged across them, and I was dragged across the sidewalk leading up to my steps, and I was pushed up the steps, and I was thrown back inside the house. But before I got thrown back inside the house, I was outside and I was struggling with him because I still was trying to fight. But by that time, I was cold and I was numb, feet numb, everything, because I was cold. I wasn't dressed for the outside. I'm on the porch and he is hitting me, doing all kind of stuff to my physical body. I can't tell y'all if he was giving me body shots or what he was doing because I no longer felt anything. But I couldn't pray. I couldn't even speak because I had so much pain that was hitting my body from being attacked like that. And I was on the porch and I looked up and my heart was praying, okay, God, I'm not going to run from ministry no more. And I said, I won't run, God. I'll preach the gospel like you told me to, and I'll say whatever you need me to say, God, but this is not how I'm supposed to die. Please don't let me die like this and my kids are in this house because he going to go back and he going to kill them. And when I prayed that, God stopped me from being killed. He threw me back in the house. My kids are still standing there in the living room. And he proceeded to hit me he proceeded to hit me in my face. And I felt him at first hitting me. But after a while, I didn't feel him hitting me anymore. I just knew that I was being hit. I didn't know what he was doing to my body because I believed that I had to have had an outer body experience because I did not feel. I just knew what was knew things was happening to me, but I was not able to feel anything. So I don't even know if after he was hitting me in my face and all in my head and I don't even know if he kicked me or he stomped me. I really could not tell you. But that went on for about 15 or 20 minutes. And when he came to himself, I guess you want to call it that, he left me face down on the floor and he ran past the kids and he went out the apartment the same way he had came in the apartment through my back windows. I laid there and fear was gripping me because I was like, okay. I laid there and I was like, am I dead? I knew I wasn't dead because I heard my children screaming. I said, okay, I'm not dead. I tried to get up. I could not get up. It took me a minute to get up. I got up and I was like a drunk person. I was staggering. And when I got up, it was blood all over me because it was coming from my mouth and my face. And I was spitting up blood and I was spitting up teeth. I got the phone and I was able to call 911. And I told them what had happened. And they came. But I had locked that front door. I tried to hug my kids. My kids came over to me and was touching me. Mommy, you okay? They were little kids and they had just been traumatized. but they were hugging me and touching me and stuff. And I made them sit on the couch. I said, Mommy gonna be okay. Y'all sit. Y'all sit on the couch, okay? They sat there. I locked the front door that I had ran out of. And by the grace of God, I made it back there to the back bedroom. And I was able to relock those windows. And I came back to the front. And by that time, the police had came to the side door. Scared me because nobody never came to my side door. And I asked who it was, and they said the police, and I made them show me ID because I didn't trust nobody at that moment. I didn't know if that was him coming back. But I opened the door, and I let the police in, and they looked at me, and it was a nasty police officer. And he said, so are you going to press charges or are you going to drop them? And I just looked at him, and the other police officer was nicer to me. And he said, ma'am, you want to press charges? And I told him yes. And he said, well, tell me what happened. And I told him all of what happened. And he just looked at me. And he said, is there anybody that you can call? I said, my phone, this house phone is not on, but I was able to call 911. He said, who do you need to call? And I told him the numbers. I called a couple of numbers and got somebody. And they came. And I filed my report. I had the picture of him, and I pressed charges in my living room, in my kitchen. With all of that going on with my face, I pressed charges. The person that they sent to come get me was the person that did not like me. I was going to a church, and she did not like me, but she was the one that God sent to come get me. And when she saw me, she changed her demeanor towards me, and she started being concerned. She took me to my mother's house, and she dropped me off and helped me get the kids on the porch. I knocked on the door. My stepdad came to the door, and he just looked at me like, what, why you look like that? What happened? And I told him I came in. I did not know that my fingers was all pulled out of place. So he put popsicle sticks. I think I had like 4 popsicle sticks, 2 on each hand, because my fingers were all distorted and twisted and bent. Not broken, but bent and twisted. And I had a handprint on my face, of course, where I had been hit. I came in and I sat down, and my brothers came downstairs and learned what was going on, and they punched the wall, and they was upset, and they got themselves together, and they left the house to go try to find him because they wanted to fight him. And so I got on the couch, and my kids got up on the couch up underneath me. The person that he punked out, the friend that he punked out and made leave, he had came to the house. And he came in and he was like, I'm sorry. He said, I'm glad you okay. He said, but I couldn't fight him like I wanted to because I didn't want to lose my job. And I just looked at him and I said, I'm glad that you still got your job, because we couldn't ever be a couple again, because that means every time he want to whoop on me, he will come because he know that you're not going to do anything. You're not going to protect me. And that relationship was severed for many years. So y'all, that is in essence my story of domestic violence, and it is one of God's hand being on my life and fighting to survive, because I knew that I was not supposed to die that way. Now, this has been part 1 of 2 of my closeout for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Please, if you listen to this, please share this story. Please share it, because it can save somebody's life. There is help out here. There is help more than it was back in 2002, more than it was back in 1997, more than it was back in 1992 when all of this started. It is help. "27 years later, 28 years later, there is better help." I pray that me sharing my story helps somebody save their life, or help someone else save someone else's life. Again, please, please, please share this story. I'm going to share it on my social media, but I'm asking you to share this. We have to fight back. Domestic violence has to go. It is not of God. I will be back with part 2. Thank you for listening.